Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into something really fundamental for you, building those deeper, more meaningful connections.
Yeah, whether that's, as a creator, a leader in your relationships, or just being a better friend.
Exactly. We're exploring how to truly know a person.
Yeah.
And we're drawing heavily from the insights you shared, particularly from David Brooks's book, How to Know a Person.
That's right. And Brooks, well, he isn't just giving us tips and tricks. He's really inviting us into a pretty profound shift in how we see and interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
This whole deep dive, it's kind of about reclaiming this lost art, seeing people deeply, honestly, and with real compassion.
Moving past the small talk.
Right. Beyond the superficial stuff to discover these vast emotional universes living inside every single person, including ourselves, actually.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear then.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ready to stop just sort of skimming the surface of your relationships and you want to learn how to genuinely listen, ask those questions that really matter, and hold space for people, basically become the kind of person others feel truly seen and valued around.
Then yeah, you're absolutely in the right place.
We're going to unpack how things like empathy, emotional presence, and just genuine curiosity can, transform pretty much every interaction you have. So let's start right at the foundation, right? That deep, really deep human yearning we all have to know other people and, just as importantly, to feel known ourselves.
Absolutely. Brooks really nails this. He says it's central to who we are, and that feeling of, anonymity or being misunderstood, that often sits right at the heart of loneliness and disconnection.
Which feels so common today, doesn't it? In this super fast-paced, tech-driven world, it's just so easy to rush past each other.
Yeah, you exchange surface-level stuff, but
you don't really connect. You can be surrounded by people physically, but still feel completely unseen.
And a lot of that, Brooks argues, comes down to what he calls an efficiency mindset.
Okay, unpack that a bit. Efficiency mindset.
Well, think about it. We're kind of conditioned, aren't we? To treat conversations almost like transactions. What's the quickest way to get the information I need? What's the outcome here?
Right, like relationships are just a means to an end sometimes.
Exactly. And the scary part is, we often apply that same transactional lens even to our closest relationships without even noticing it. And that right there can leave you feeling profoundly alone. So Brooks challenges us to shift away from that towards what he calls a truly humanistic mindset.
What do you mean?
It means appreciating people just for who they are, for their own sake, honoring their unique stories, their struggles, their wins, even their doubts and messy bits.
Okay.
It's about going into a conversation not to extract something or get something done, but simply to connect, to learn, to witness who this other person is.
That shift, just thinking about it, from efficiency to humanity.
Yeah.
It feels like the bedrock, doesn't it? It makes everything else possible.
It really does.
It changes those everyday exchanges, maybe even boring ones, into something potentially quite rich, quite soulful.
Yeah.
So instead of those default safe questions, where are you from, what do you do, which are fine,
But they often stay on the surface.
Right. We learn to ask questions that actually illuminate someone's character. Questions designed to deepen the conversation, not just keep it going.
Precisely. And these aren't just, polite questions. They're invitations. Invitations for someone to share a bit of their personal mythology, those core stories that define who they are.
Can you give some examples? What are these illuminating questions like?
Sure. Brooks offers some great ones, like who influenced you most in your life? Or maybe what obstacles have you overcome? Even something simple like what truly sparks joy for you or what sparks you?
Okay.
Asking these isn't about being nosy. It's a signal. It says, hey, I actually care about you, your story, it matters, and I'm actually here to listen to it. And when we talk about curious listening, it's definitely not passive. Not at all. It's active, it's purposeful, and it can be really intimate, actually.
So not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Definitely not. It's about being fully present for them. Your mind isn't wandering off. You're not busy crafting your brilliant response while they're still mid-sentence. You're not interrupting, and you're certainly not trying to constantly steer the conversation back to yourself. You're just letting their words, their stories, their emotions, whatever they're sharing, become your absolute focus. The real magic here, I think, is understanding that true listening isn't about you filling the silence with advice or your own anecdotes.
Right.
It's trusting that the space itself, the listening itself, creates fertile ground for them to discover things, maybe even for themselves as they speak.
And Brooks really drives home a key point here, doesn't he? that we often learn the most about people when we ask the questions we tend to shy away from.
Yes, he's talking about their struggles, their doubts, maybe their disappointments, not just hearing about the highlight reel, the successes and achievements.
Yeah, I get that. It can feel a bit awkward sometimes, maybe uncomfortable to step into that vulnerable space with someone.
It can, absolutely.
But he argues that's exactly where you find the real texture of a person's character, where genuine connection actually sparks.
And to really put this into practice, Brooks suggests we can just reframe some of those common everyday questions.
Like how?
Well, instead of the standard, how's your job? You could maybe ask something more specific, more genuine, like, what's the hardest part of your work right now? Or what aspects of it really fulfill you?
Okay, that's different.
Or instead of just, where are you from? Maybe try, who are the people who really shaped you when you were growing up?
Ah, I see. It signals you want to go deeper than just the surface facts.
Exactly. Soul to soul, not just resume to resume.
And it's not just the words they say, is it? You're also tuning into, well, everything else.
Mm-hmm. Careful observation. Their tone of voice, maybe those little pauses, how they hold themselves, their body language. It all tells a story.
Like someone saying, oh, I'm fine, but you see their shoulders are tense or maybe their hands are fidgeting.
Right. And a curious listener notices those cues. They don't necessarily ignore them.
So how do you follow up on that gently, without sounding like you're interrogating them?
It really comes down to genuine compassion and, well, curiosity, not accusation. You could just softly say something like, I noticed you paused there. Is there more you wanted to say about that? Or maybe, you seem to be carrying a lot today. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah.
That kind of gentle observation and inquiry, it shows you're truly engaged.
Yeah.
It builds safety. It lets them know it's okay to open up if they want to.
Okay, so we've got the mindset shift, humanity over efficiency. We understand listening is active, curious, observant. The next piece, and maybe the most direct way to unlock someone's inner world, is mastering the art of the question itself. Brooks really hammers this home. A well-chosen question can just cut through all the defenses and let someone actually show you their soul. It's a powerful tool.
It truly is an art form. It's about picking questions that illuminate character, not just credentials. Questions about struggles, not just successes.
Yeah.
About motives, not just job titles. And Brooks makes a great point. People actually love talking about the defining moments in their lives. You know, those times their character was forged, or their resolve was tested, or their whole worldview shifted.
Yeah, those moments tell you so much more than just asking, what do you do?
Infinitely more.
So what are some of these powerful questions he suggests? Can you give us a few more examples?
Absolutely. Think about asking something like, who made you who you are today? That's huge. Or what's a moment you're genuinely proud of?
Okay.
Or maybe, tell me about a decision you made that really changed the course of your life. And to get at their core values, questions like, who or what do you care about most deeply? Or even, where do you find your sense of happiness or peace?
Wow, they're not small talk questions, are they?
Not at all. They invite reflection, maybe even excavation. They ask people to connect with the deeper currents of their own lives, to share parts of themselves that usually stay hidden.
And the key is how you ask them.
Right.
It's not just the words.
Oh, absolutely critical.
Wow.
Your tone, your delivery. It has to come from genuine curiosity. If you sound like you're judging or just probing for gossip, people will shut down instantly.
You can feel that.
But if you ask from a place of real compassion, if you show you sincerely care about their story, their experience, people often open up in surprising ways. Brooks calls it a kind of loving inquiry.
Loving inquiry. I like that.
Yeah, it signals your life, your inner world, it matters enough for me to want to truly understand it.
Now, there's a big hurdle we all face when trying to get to know someone deeply, isn't there? It's the masks, the roles people play.
Absolutely. Everyone does it. We're parents, workers, friends, caregivers. We all put on certain social masks to navigate these roles. It's like a protective layer.
But Brooks reminds us that mask, that role, it's not the whole person. Not even close, usually.
Exactly. So to truly know someone, you have to learn to see past those layers.
Which means, how do we do that?
Well, it starts with approaching people without immediate prejudice or judgment. Suspending your assumptions, asking yourself, okay, who is this person? Like deep down, when you peel away the job title, the family role, the social persona.
It's so easy to just equate someone with their label, isn't it? The manager, the teacher, the doctor.
So easy. But those labels tell us almost nothing about their hidden fears or their secret passions or maybe the disappointments they carry. We have to try and inquire, who are they when the uniform comes off, metaphorically speaking? when the day's duties are done.
And the way to see that is by paying really close attention to those moments, maybe fleeting moments when they let their guard down.
Yes, exactly. It might be when they suddenly become vulnerable, or when a genuine passion just bursts through unexpectedly, or maybe when their voice trembles with real emotion.
Those are the cracks in the armor.
They are. They're like these little invitations, these glimpses of the soul underneath the role. And if you meet those moments with presence, with acceptance, well, that's when connection deepens.
And this ability to see past the role, it ties into something Brooks calls moral imagination. What exactly does he mean by that?
It's the capacity to really put ourselves in someone else's shoes. Not just sympathize, but to genuinely try and appreciate their unique way of seeing the world, their perspective.
Okay.
It's about honoring their dignity, their inherent worth, seeing them not just as a collection of traits or a function they perform, but as a whole person, complex and valuable in their own right.
So is moral imagination basically just a fancy term for empathy? Or is there a subtle difference there?
That's a really good question. They're definitely close cousins, but maybe not identical twins. Empathy is often about feeling with someone sharing their emotion.
Right.
Moral imagination takes it maybe a step further. It's the intellectual and emotional effort to grasp their inner logic, their unique worldview, even if it's completely different from your own.
Ah, I see. Like trying to understand why they feel or act that way from their perspective?
Exactly, like a novelist trying to get inside a character's head. It requires this deep respect for their internal landscape, even if you wouldn't make the same choices yourself. It's about understanding their why.
This leads beautifully into what you could argue is one of the greatest gifts you can actually give someone. Just your complete, undivided presence.
Mm-hmm.
Brooks has this striking image. He says people walk around with these invisible emotional meters,
Yeah.
constantly scanning their environment, asking subconsciously, do I matter to this person? Do they actually see me as someone valuable, or am I just like part of the background?
It's incredibly powerful when someone offers that recognition, that presence, without wanting anything back. When you become that person for others, you become a kind of anchor in their lives.
That makes sense.
And Brooks points out something important. People are often doing a lot of emotional labor behind the scenes that goes unnoticed.
Like what?
Like, staying composed when they're actually grieving inside, or being patient when they feel totally overwhelmed, or managing to be kind even when they're hurting.
Right, the stuff nobody sees.
Exactly. And when someone actually recognizes that quiet effort, when they say something like, I see how hard you're working to hold it together, Brooks says the effect is electric.
Wow.
Because they feel seen. Not for the mask they're wearing, but for the genuine effort, the truth they're carrying underneath. It makes them feel safe. It encourages authenticity.
And that feeling, that deep emotional need to feel like you matter in someone else's eyes,
Yeah.
that's universal, isn't it?
Absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
And it's not about showering people with empty compliments. It's about what Brooks calls precise presence.
Precise presence.
Yeah, it means really seeing what's unique or admirable in them and naming it clearly, specifically.
Okay, give me an example.
Instead of just, you're great, maybe something like, you have this amazing way of calming people down just by being in the room. Or, I really noticed how you took care of all those little details earlier when everyone else was rushing.
Specificity makes it real.
It does. Those moments, even if they only last a few seconds, they can stick with someone for years. They affirm value.
And on the flip side, Brooks warns us about all the subtle ways we can accidentally diminish someone's value.
Yeah, it's so easy to do without thinking, interrupting them constantly, mocking an idea they share, even jokingly, just shrugging off their suggestions or concerns.
Yeah.
Every time we do that, Brooks says, it sends a little message. You don't matter quite enough for me to be careful with you. But the reverse is just as true. Every time we show genuine interest, every time we make space for their passion, or even just offer a simple, I see you and I'm glad you're here, we restore a little bit of their dignity. We build that connection stronger. Okay, let's dig into this idea of eliciting someone's inner world. It's kind of an art form. It's about helping people articulate thoughts or feelings they might not have even fully realized they had until they actually said them out loud.
So it's not about pulling information out of them like an interrogation.
No, definitely not. It's the opposite, really. It's about creating a space that feels so safe, so incredibly welcoming, that people feel free to just explore and express whatever's true for them in that moment.
And how do you create that kind of space?
Well, a big part of it is consciously withholding your own need to dominate the conversation. Resisting the urge to jump in with your own story or your solution, and learning, as Brooks puts it, to hold silence like a gift, not rushing to fill every pause.
Holding silence like a gift. I like that. It implies the silence isn't empty, it's actually useful.
Exactly. It's fertile ground. It gives the speaker room to think, to feel, to maybe find the words for something deeper. It allows revelations to surface, often for them as much as for you.
And this connects to using certain kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Right? Like keys that unlock different rooms in someone's inner house.
Yes, precisely. These aren't your typical surface level questions. Think about asking something like, what's something significant you've changed your mind about recently? That can be really revealing. Or, what's a belief you've held since childhood that you feel still shapes who you are today? Or even, when did you last feel completely, utterly alive?
Yeah, those definitely invite more than a one-word answer. They ask for a story, a reflection.
They do. They invite excavation. And alongside this, there's another quiet superpower that Brooks highlights: emotional attunement.
Emotional attunement. What's that exactly?
It's that almost instinctive ability some people have to just sense what others are feeling. Not because they've been explicitly told, but because they're paying incredibly close attention to the unspoken language.
You reading the room, but on a personal level.
Yeah, reading their presence, noticing the subtle shifts in their posture, the cadence of their voice, their energy level, the pauses, all those little cues that reveal their inner emotional temperature.
And attunement also means fighting that urge we often have to immediately try and fix things, right? Or dismiss their feelings or tell them why they shouldn't feel that way.
Oh, absolutely. That's crucial. Often Brooks says, what people truly want isn't a solution, it's resonance.
Resonance.
Yeah, just someone to sit with them inside their feeling for a moment, to affirm their reality, to say, I get it, non-verbally, rather than standing outside offering advice or corrections.
So what does that look like? How do we actually do that kind of emotional mirroring?
Often it's less about finding the perfect words and more about your own presence.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as nodding slowly while maintaining eye contact or offering a soft, that sounds incredibly challenging.
Okay.
It's about letting your own facial expression, maybe even your posture, subtly reflect back the emotion they're conveying. It signals, I feel it with you, you're not alone in this. It communicates deep understanding without needing a lecture or a fix.
Let's talk about that transactional mindset again.
Yeah.
It feels so pervasive in modern life, doesn't it? We're just moving through our days, checking off boxes, and people can easily become just means to an end. The cashier is a function, the coworker is a resource. It's efficient, maybe, but it's often empty. And Brooks argues that what we fundamentally crave as humans isn't just usefulness, it's meaning, real meaning. And meaning doesn't live in those quick transactions.
No, he says it lives in transformations, in those interactions that actually change us or change the connection even slightly.
So how do we shift from transaction to transformation?
It starts, Brooks suggests, when we just pause. Pause long enough to be fully present with the person in front of us. When we stop treating them just as a function, cashier, waiter, colleague, and start seeing them as a sacred carrier of experience.
Sacred carrier of experience. That's a powerful phrase.
Isn't it? Think about a doctor who doesn't just tick boxes about symptoms, but actually asks, so how are things for you outside of the exam room?
Right.
Or maybe a barista who notices a regular seems down and genuinely asks, hey, is everything all right today? Those little moments, they push the interaction beyond the purely transactional. They acknowledge the whole person.
And this brings us back to curiosity, doesn't it? Which Brooks really reframes. It's not just a personality trait you either have or don't.
Exactly. He frames it as a discipline, a conscious choice you make, day in and day out.
So the most deeply connected people aren't necessarily the most outgoing or bubbly.
Not necessarily. They're the ones who are most genuinely curious. They approach every person almost like a universe waiting to be discovered. Not a problem to be solved, or a box to be ticked, or a stereotype to confirm.
It's a deliberate choice to be interested.
It is. And he makes a really useful distinction between shallow curiosity, the kind fueled by gossip, or just wanting novelty, and profound curiosity.
And profound curiosity is.
It's driven by wonder, by humility, by actual care for the other person. It doesn't want to use the information, it just wants to understand, to connect.
That feels like a powerful antidote to judgment.
It really is. When you're genuinely curious about someone's story, about why they are the way they are, it's much harder to stay stuck in judgment. That curiosity, that openness, empathy just flows more naturally. It can seriously breathe life back into relationships that have gone a bit stale.
Let's talk a bit more about presence. We touched on it, but it feels like such a core element here. Grix emphasizes its understated but truly transformative power. It's not just about being physically in the same room, is it? It's offering your full attention, your emotional availability, your undivided humanity, really.
Yeah, it's that quiet power that communicates without needing words. You are worth my time. You are worth my awareness. You are worth my focus right now.
And he highlights how crucial this is, especially in difficult times.
Absolutely. In moments of loss or confusion or deep vulnerability, often just your steady, quiet presence is far more healing than any advice or clever words could ever be.
It's not about having the answers.
Not at all. He calls it an active stillness. You're not doing nothing. You're actively being with the person in their experience, trusting the moment enough to just stay there, even if it feels uncomfortable, because often you're simply being there is the most powerful thing you can offer.
And this kind of active presence, it's fundamental if we want to craft conversations that truly matter. What Brooks calls potentially a sacred space where two souls meet and transform.
Yeah, lovely phrase. And he says it starts with intentionality, just making that quiet decision beforehand. I'm going to bring my whole self to this interaction.
And asking better questions, obviously.
Definitely. Moving beyond the autopilot questions, not just, how was your day? But maybe, what did today teach you? Or what surprised you today?
And to deepen those conversations further.
Well, we talked about emotional mirroring, reflecting their emotion with warmth, not just analyzing their content.
Right, resonance, not solutions necessarily.
Exactly. And he also really emphasized the power of pauses again. Remember, silence in a conversation isn't empty space to be filled awkwardly. It's fertile ground. It gives thoughts time to ripen, allows deeper truths to surface. And ultimately, Brooks says, real conversation, the kind that transforms, it demands a bit of risk.
Risk, how so?
The willingness to share a little piece of your true self, to be authentic, maybe even a little vulnerable yourself. That's what invites the same authenticity in return.
So wrapping this all up, after diving deep into David Brooks's insights from the sources you brought, one core truth really stands out for me. Truly knowing a person, it's not about collecting facts or slapping a label on them.
No, not at all.
He calls it maybe the most sacred task we have as humans. It's this human art of seeing deeply. And it's not reserved for therapists or philosophers.
No, it's a daily practice.
Yeah.
It's intentional. And it's available to absolutely anyone who chooses to just slow down a bit, open up, and genuinely care.
And in today's world, which just feels like it's getting louder and faster all the time, where, we scroll past faces on screens instead of looking into people's eyes, that choice, the choice to try and deeply know someone, Brooks suggests it becomes almost an act of quiet rebellion.
I love that phrase, quiet rebellion, and it truly changes lives, doesn't it? Because when someone genuinely feels seen, truly seen for who they are, Brooks says their soul expands, their voice gets stronger, they step more fully into becoming who they were always meant to be.
That's powerful. And it's a good reminder, too, that relationships aren't built in these huge dramatic moments necessarily.
Rarely, actually.
They're built in thousands and thousands of tiny moments, right? That quick glance that says, I notice you. That thoughtful question that says, I actually care about your answer.
Yeah.
Even that comfortable silence that just says, I'm here with you.
Beautifully put. So the invitation, really, for you listening, is to go out into your world with open eyes, open ears, and an open heart. Not with an agenda to impress anyone or to fix anyone, but simply to know, to understand. And in that act of knowing, may you find more beauty, more healing, and maybe more belonging than you ever imagined possible.